All right, welcome everybody to Youngstown Studio. We're joined today by our special guest, Mo Jabari, a professional wrestler who's stars in the new movie Dark Match with Chris Jericho. So, Mo, how are you?
Doing good, my friend. How are you?
Doing great, man. Thanks so much for joining us. But before we get into the Dark Match movie, give me a little bit of your background, man. I mean, when did you know that pro wrestling was something that you wanted to do for a living?
Man, it was one of those things where, of course, I watched it when I was growing up, and I just happened to be in a school where every kid in my grade class was like the biggest wrestling fan, each one bigger than the other one. You know what I mean?
Uh,
So all day we're comparing with it. So it's like it took over my world essentially. But I think when I went to high school, I remember having Bruce Hart as a substitute teacher for like half a semester.
mhm,
And I would talk to him every day. I would talk to him every day about wrestling. And I think he was the first person that kind of told me wrestling was like a believable and like a doable dream. Like it was a
mhm.
doable thing. You just got to go out there and do it. And he kind of gave me the picture and painted it for me and everything. And I think after I graduated high school, while I was in high school, I was always one of those guys that, anytime I get computer time, I'm always wrestling, searching schools or whatnot. And obviously, I live in Calgary and I'm from Calgary. And I found Lance Storm, who was just down the road from where I grew up and lived. So that was always in the back of my head. But when I graduated high school, like through my school years, I played sports. Like I was one of those kids that got up 5 in the morning, went to
Mhm.
school for practice, did my school. After school, had practice. So I was so tired after I graduated high school that
Mhm.
I remember kind of making this deal with my mom where I was like, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I'm just dead and beat. So I was like, can I take 1 year off? Just 1 year off, and then I'll go do whatever you want to do. Like if you want me to go to college or university, whatever, I'll do it. Just give me 1 year of a break. And within that 1 year, I think I decided and figured out that wrestling was the route.
Mhm.
And I went and got a job. I saved money and then went to Landstorm School. And after that, it was real. It was life. Let's go.
So you had a member of the Hart family as a substitute teacher? Is that what you said? So
Yeah,
so
I had Bruce.
so you guys, so obviously you live close to the Hart family, or live close, you live within proximity of those guys then?
Yeah. I'm really, especially now more than ever, I'm really, really good friends with the Hearts, especially Brett's side of the family, like his kids, his grandkids. They're all like really good family friends of mine. I have a really good relationship with Brett, where I get to see him, if not every day, every other day, and we text, we talk about my matches and stuff like that. So I have a really, really close bond with them.
Oh, nice, man. Nice. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk a little bit about that if you would, sort of your relationship with Brett and kind of some of the advice that he's given you and what you've kind of learned from him.
Oh man, I think wrestling is one of those things where you can almost teach anybody how to do the physical side of it.
Mm,
You can bump, you can do these, and for the most part, people understand and do it and like moves and stuff like that. But I think wrestling in general is so difficult when you got to put the physical side and the psychology side and performing side and all that, and it's so difficult, and that's why a lot of people don't catch it well and
mm,
don't figure out well. But I think Lance gave me a great foundation and he gave me a great start, and I think most of the time he gave me a great head start. Graduating from his school and his fundamentals and stuff gave me a start that when I went to the Indies circle, a lot of people weren't as good as I thought they would be because I came from that. But
mm,
when Brad got his hands on me, it was teaching me the realism of wrestling, the psychology side. And he essentially just made wrestling real to me. He's like,
mm,
wrestling is real, you know? Like I know this idea. He's like treat wrestling real, and you'll understand how it works. And I've spent a lot of time sitting next to him and him explaining to me what to do in different scenarios and how to get out of different things and this and that. And honestly, his biggest advice about wrestling is just make it real. It's a real. We're pretending to have a real fight. That's
mm,
essentially what he explained to me. And he goes, if you go try to have a real fight, then everything is going to be great. Don't try to make it look phony and whatnot. And he's that old school. He's in that era of old school guys that wrestling was very real to them.
mm.
Every day was a real day. So I'm very fortunate and very lucky to have him as a mentor, as a friend, as a guy that I can a message or call or go see and say, hey, I'm in this situation. How do I get out of it? Or
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm stuck here. How do I go about it? Or any advice or whatnot. And he always gives me the right. I don't think Brett's ever directed me the wrong way. He's always
Mm-hmm.
directed me the right way. You know.
Is it challenging? So, guys like Bret Hart and a lot of the old school guys, like you just said, certainly treated everything as it's real. Is it challenging coming from so coming from that sort of background? Um, is it challenging for you? Because there's a lot of wrestlers out there that necessarily don't take it real. You know what I mean? It's more showy to them, or it's more just about the entertainment aspect, or whatever, and sort of that kayfabe. You know, and I get everybody kind of knows that wrestling's a work. Like so that line has been blurred years and years ago. But is it challenging from your perspective, coming from that kind of background into a world that's, I guess, maybe treats wrestling less serious than it used to be treated?
Not really. I think it's a thing where like it's appreciated. Like it's not
Mhm,
seen every day. So like when you come in a locker room or like when you're trying to figure out what you're gonna do for the night and you're the guy that's like, I'm not gonna do that. It doesn't make sense, or I'm not gonna do this,
yeah.
or that. People kind of like take a second. They're like, "What is this guy talking about?" Or what's? And then I think essentially they figure out, okay. And then obviously we go out there and we do what we're supposed to do. And when we come back, they're like, "That was great. That was awesome." It's like I should have known. You know what I mean? But I think it's like watching a good movie. It's watching
Mhm,
like a great movie when we all know what's on the screen is all BS and it's all fake. But it's like when you go watch a great movie and you get lost in it and you appreciate it and you walk away saying that was amazing, had a great time. You're never gonna think about how fake it was. You're never gonna
mhm,
think how
yeah,
what's his name, Tom Cruise jumped off a plane. You're not really gonna think about it. You're just gonna think about how great the movie was. So
mhm,
like wrestling is like that, where when you go to a show or you watch a match, it's like if the match was great, you're not gonna sit there and like, hey, buddy, that was really fake. But they're gonna be like, oh my, I had a great time. It was a great match. It was awesome. I think that guy really got hurt, or I
mhm,
think that guy really did this. It's like you just go out there and you just give them the best, and you give them a real wrestling match. And I think people really, if you allow people to get lost in it, it's real.
mhm,
You know, it's what you sell. Essentially, is what you sell, they buy. If you come out and sell a sugarless lemonade, they're not gonna like it. But if you put some sugar in the lemonade, it's a good lemonade.
mhm. So, going back to your relationship with Bret Hart, I mean, do you have a favorite Bret Hart match
So,
or a
I
couple?
always talk to him. I always talk to him about this. Obviously, he's got a list of great matches, and I have this Survivor Series '96 with Stone Cold Steve Austin in Madison Square Garden when Brett just came back from getting his knee cleaned up, and it showed a realism where like when Brett was there before, he was the best in the world. He was the best there is and everything. And Stone Cold's like this guy who's just trying to make a point. But then Brett leaves, gets surgery, and he's out for some time. And obviously Stone Cold comes up, and he's
Mm,
this big star or whatever. And Brett comes back, and essentially what the whole match is based about is like Brett saying, "Hey, I'm not the best in the world. This guy is.
mhm,
So I'm trying to come back and prove myself as one of the best in the world by beating this guy." And it's just a match. It was a beautiful match. And Steve Austin is an underrated because we all know Stone Cold Steve Austin, beer, throwing the middle finger and stutters. But
mhm,
Steve Austin was a great worker. It was a
mhm,
beautiful worker. And Brett was one of those guys that brought the best out of him. And they had great matches. But I have that, and obviously I want to say him and Piper at WrestleMania, and then. Mm, it's always him and Mr. Perfect. So it's like I don't know if
mhm.
it's King of the Ring or SummerSlam, but King of the Ring was the best. King of the Ring was solid as hell. But
Yeah,
I'm
those
I'm
are.
I'm such a big Bret Hart fan, so it's like I can watch any match anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about just total masters with Bret Hart and Kurt Hennig, and like you said, Stone Cold Steve Austin was an amazing worker, and all the stunning Steve stuff. I mean, if you go back to some of those in WCW, what he was doing in the ring, like you associate Stone Cold now with like sort of the kick, the stunner, like
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
moveset got a lot as he
He got
had like knee
limited, got
problems
hurt.
and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so, but oh man, what a tremendous worker he was.
Oh man, yeah. Him and Steamboat in WCW or whatnot. He can work. He was a beautiful worker. He can go with anybody. It's just that I think when he got to WWF, him and Bret were the perfect
Hmm.
two guys. You know what I mean? He was playing the redneck, I don't give a F versus this babyface, hero that was like, I don't care. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful matchup. And I think that's when Bret excelled the most, when he had a perfect matchup.
Hmm.
And Stone Cold was, they made magic together. It
Hmm.
was a beautiful hit. And then obviously they go on to make history with the WrestleMania 13 match.
Hmm.
It's like so him and Steve Austin was super, super, super underrated worker.
Speaking of making magic and sort of chemistry with somebody else in the ring, is there an opponent that you've been in the ring with that has really kind of brought out the best in you, or brought out the best in each other?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been actually we so we've been working the last year and a half ish. Thomas Billington, the
Hmm.
Dynamite Kid, the nephew of the original Dynamite Kid, who actually works for the AEW right now. But Tom gets it. I think Tom understands the same. I think Tom has actually been under the learning tree as of recent too of Bret, like where Bret's kind of like throwing in his ear, and also Tom comes from a background of he's from the British side of the world where his dad raised him to tell him, hey, this is how wrestling should work. This is how your uncle did it.
Mm,
It's serious. You don't fool around. You don't do this. Take it serious, and people will treat you as such. So Tom's always serious and like he doesn't take any bullshit from anybody.
mm,
But me and him's chemistry is perfect. We go out there and it's I don't know what it is, but you know I'm it's just magic. We can go out there and it's like our matches get better every time. It's like
mm,
every match is better than the one before, and there's also like we hate each other. We really hate each other, and it's like nothing's better than fighting a friend and getting hit hard. And it's like, oh, I know he didn't mean it. He would just do
yeah.
that for the love of the game,
Mm,
and it's solid. And we just recently just had one. Our last match was at Dungeon Wrestling here in Calgary. We had a match, and we got a standing ovation, and people were going nuts. And it was a beautiful match. We both walked away from it not hurt, but hurt. But
mhm,
it was really good match. I love it. And actually, I'm headed. Me and him are going on the Jericho cruise here
mm,
coming up. Hopefully, we get to wrestle each other, and then we head to Japan. So I'm wrestling him in Japan in February. So I think promoters are kind of finding out that me and him
mhm.
are ticket sellers.
What's an underrated move or an underrated thing that that maybe gets overlooked by the casual wrestling fan, as far as either technique or as far as just technique, expression, something like that? Is there something that comes to mind to you that's sort of an underrated aspect? Maybe something that Brett did, or any of some of the old school guys did that might get kind of lost in translation today.
I think in general, just a wrestling match in general, like moves and stuff are they're difficult and you can get hurt and whatnot. But I think bell to bell, I think people don't obviously we turn on TV or we go to a live show and watch it, but I don't think people understand how difficult it is to put a great match. What goes into it, both physically and mentally. And I think um like you see guys like Brett walk around today and you're like, oh, he's really beat up. Yeah, he put a lot on the line.
Mm,
But I think bell to bell, the psychology of it, because guys sit in the back and think about what the people are going to react to, how they're going to react to things, and they put that together. So for somebody to sit before they see anybody,
mm,
and essentially to write a mini movie and say, okay, at this point, people are going to react like this. At
mm,
this point, they're going to react like this. So it's like for you to visualize an entire match, and when you go out there, is exactly what you visualized. It's very difficult, and it's a very difficult thing to sit in the back and come up with a great match. You sit back there and you go back and forth until you come up with something. And sometimes it's not great when you go out there, but I think people don't realize that because if you mess up something or you do something, they think it's a botch or they think this. It's like, no, it's hard to put something great together.
Mhm,
That's why, when you write a movie, it takes years. Like some movies take 10 years, for it to even come to life. It's like, so we're coming into the building 5 hours before, like 4 hours before, and we're trying to make, classics. We like speaking of Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Those guys probably see each other 5 hours before, 6 hours before, and they have
mhm,
a match that people still talk about 30 years later.
mhm,
And it made Stone Cold Steve Austin to the greatest, one of the biggest superstars in the whole wide world. People don't see it like that. They
mhm,
think it was probably like a great match that they sat there for 9 months and came up with. No, it's probably like a day's work,
mhm,
and you sit there and you think about that was the greatest thing ever. Yeah, it's like these guys are geniuses for them to come up with something, visualize it, and let it all go out there, and then to be and then it becomes what they visualized. So
mhm,
it's like, yeah, people don't give wrestlers the credit they deserve in that aspect, because we go on and we watch award shows, we watch the Grammy, and we watch all these things where, like, the Oscars, where they're like, oh, so and so was the best movie or best character or best actor. But yeah, that movie took 10 years to figure out
mhm,
the
mhm,
right characters, the right things. These guys are doing it in hours.
mhm. So you had a WWE tryout, last year. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I went down to Orlando at the PC at the Performance Center in June. I had a private tryout, so they threw me in the classes, which is just essentially the way it's set up is um, it's like for like a week, I was essentially like a part of the classes where the signed guys are. So I was
Mhm,
going Monday to Friday. I was going there for hours, and I would go in and do different things and participate in classes. I thought it was a wonderful experience for me because, one, I got to go and learn from some of the greatest minds. Like, again, I get to learn from Bret Hart, who's one of the greatest minds. But then I get to go to Orlando and learn from like a Shawn Michaels,
mhm,
William Regal, Fit Finley. Like
mhm,
these guys are like who's who of wrestling, and I'm sitting there Monday to Friday for hours, sitting next to William Regal, and he's explaining to me the ins and outs of everything, and then I get to go have matches in front of them, and then they break it down, and it was like a week's worth of. Like, I remember William Regal kept saying, "This week alone, we're gonna give you 10 years of experience,"
mhm,
right? And he really did feel that way. I know he was saying it to just maybe just to say it, or maybe he actually did mean it, because I did feel like when I left and got on the plane to come back home, I did feel like I had like 10 years of experience. He saved me 10 years of trying to figure things out, because they figured it out for us. And I mean, they did it. So,
mhm.
I had a great experience and got to see what it is like to be in that PC in the Performance Center and to live that life. And hopefully, it's something that I will be doing or gonna do full time. And hopefully, I hear back from them soon and see where we go from there.
So, let's get into, so you star in Dark Match, which, it comes out with the end of this month, right? The 31st?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, tell me a little bit about that, about how that kinda came together and how you ended up in the film.
Man, it all came like pretty fast. It was like so fast that and I actually didn't even know how what it was really, essentially. But I was touring in New York. I was doing a Bret Hart tour, funny enough, and he was on it, and we are like going all over New York and states. And I essentially one of the producers from the movie, I think it was Mike Peterson or yeah, Peterson, Mike Peterson. Um, Sorry, Mike, I just got lost. Essentially, he worked on Brett's A&E documentary. I
Mhm,
guess because the COVID restrictions was still a thing, so the WWE couldn't send, or A&E couldn't send, a team down here, so they used a team from here to film their stuff. And he was one of the producers on it, and so he kind of built a relationship through that with Brad and Brett's wife Julie, ex-wife Julie Hart. And so when he was fishing for casts and stuff like that, essentially they already had the full cast. I think they were just trying to find someone for that Enigma Jones character,
mhm,
which is my character. And I guess both Brett and Julie suggested me. They're like, we know a kid. His name is Mo, and Mike knew me. Mike right away was like, I know Mo because he's been to shows where he's seen me. So right away they put that in his head, and he was like, okay, actually, Mo would be great for this role. And all of a sudden I got a phone call, and or like an email, and email led to a phone call and to 10 other phone calls, and then all of a sudden it became this crazy thing where I'm getting emails from different departments because I worked on I did like a little bit of acting, but it wasn't to that level. I did there's a it's he's local, but it's like a Canadian thing. His name is Terry Fubar, Terry Cahill. He's done the Fubar movies. I think it's him, Terry, and Diener. I don't know if you're familiar with that. They're just like a country, Alberta boys type of thing. You drink all day type of, so it's like an
Mm,
iconic little like project that all over Canada is known. But the guy who stars in it and who wrote it and stuff like that, his name is Dave Lawrence, and he's from Calgary. So I did some acting with him on Fubar. So essentially, I was myself, but it was some sort of kind of going behind the camera and kind of seeing how that works. So I thought it was that. I thought it was like that. You know what I mean? I got paid for it, so I thought it
mm,
was, oh, I'm gonna, make a couple of dollars, whatever. But then emails kept coming, boom, wardrobe this, travel this, this, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I don't think it really got real to me until I got on the phone with, I think payroll or something like that, and they were talking to me about what my pay was going to be
mm,
essentially. And I remember this lady's talking, and she said some numbers that I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, you paid me that much for this? They're
mm.
like, yeah. I'm like, when do you want me there? Like, how fast do you want me to get there? Like, you know what I mean? So it was a ridiculous amount of money for what I did. Essentially, that was the first time I was like, wait, this is real. And I like, went back and searched it and looked at it and then seeing what was going on. So it came about that way. But then I went into it, and it was a great experience overall. Just again, my character in it doesn't say much. He doesn't do much. He's a silent guy. But essentially, he is one of the most important characters in the movie because he's aware all the time. He's one of those guys everywhere, every scene we're at, everything we're doing. He's one of those guys that reads the room and figures things out a lot faster than the rest of the characters. You know what I mean? Um, he doesn't say much though. That's the problem. So he figures out what's going on, but he's not going to say anything. So but it's an interesting movie and a very exciting movie actually. I've watched it now 3 times, so it's the one that I think people are really really going to enjoy.
Yeah, if you would, kind of outline, well, without obviously giving too much away, can
Yeah.
you sort of outline, kind of outline the plot and then where your kind of character, Enigma Jones falls into all of it?
Yeah, so like the movie's about a small town, small time wrestling company in the based in the '80s that essentially just get a deal to come perform in a small town for insane amount of money, and the promoter and the wrestlers are in need of this money, so they go about it to go do it, and it's essentially when they get to this town, it's they run into these big problems. Essentially, this town is full of cult
Mm,
individuals, satanic, individuals, and there's a leader that has, that wants revenge for things that happened in the past, right? So he's setting, us up to get his revenge on certain people on the roster. So but it's a very interesting, movie in the sense of anybody who knows how independent wrestling works.
mm,
You see independent wrestling throughout the movie, and they go hand in hand. How independent wrestling goes today, especially the traveling aspect, the wrestling small venues, small towns, and essentially just the people, like the fans.
mm,
You'd see a lot of similarities in there, so you kind of giggle at that. But my character essentially in it, he's there's a lot of heels in the movie, right? So everyone's essentially a heel, I think, except for me, right?
mm, mm,
I'm like the baby face. I'm a baby face that doesn't speak, that doesn't talk, doesn't do nothing. I wear a mask, which is difficult. I think the greatest babyface ever to wear a mask is Rey Mysterio, and has done a tremendous job at doing so. But for a first time actor, for me to go under a mask and deliver emotions and different body languages, eye contact, different things like that. It was it was difficult at first, but I think as time went on and as Lowell Dean, who's the director, was a phenomenal and an amazing director because essentially he grabbed me by the hand and walked me and showed me what to do, how to do it, and I got really really comfortable with it. So it was great. Essentially, what I learned from it all was um, it was acting is so much different from wrestling because when you wrestle, you're in front of crowds, you're in front of people. So whatever you do, you get an immediate reaction. Like, when you see people's reactions, you're like, okay, that worked. Okay, great. Or like, you do this, okay, that worked. But it's like you're in front of hundreds of cameras and a cast and people at the set that are quiet that are all just watching you. So whatever you do, you're not getting a reaction for it. So
Mm.
you get nervous. You're like, okay, I definitely sucked there or whatnot. It was so difficult, but Lowell did a great job teaching me, grabbing me by the hand, walking me through, and figuring things out. And as time went on, I got really comfortable with it. But yeah, it's I think it's just a movie that people will understand, heels, baby faces, and things like that. And me as the baby face keeps that throughout the movie, and you'll see different scenarios to show my baby face,
Mm.
characteristics and stuff like that. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I think people are gonna enjoy it.
Nice. What was Jericho's part in kind of in all this?
He was the leader. He was the leader. He's the guy that wants the revenge because
Gotcha.
in the past he was a wrestler that essentially has loose ends to tie up, and he sets us up,
Mm.
to try to get his revenge. And he has some problems and some heat and some beef with one of the wrestlers on the team. So he does a phenomenal job, man. I remember Chris was touring with Fozzy in Australia at the time, and he was, I think, Ring of Honor champion. So he was juggling like three different balls.
Mm.
At I remember actually specific this I remember this very very specifically. We filmed all day. We filmed like from 5 a.m. all the way to about midnight-ish or whatever, and I had the next day off, so we got as much as we can out of that day. So everyone was like, all right, you guys have the day off, you can sleep, you can do whatever. So I'm like, oh great, I'm just gonna go home, I'm gonna go to my hotel and sleep it off. Chris got on a private jet, flew to Dallas, had a pay-per-view, and I think he was wrestling Cesaro or Claudio, for the title. And Chris flew out there, wrestled, and it was a hard-hitting match. And he got like Claudio did his swing, for 100. I think he did like an insane amount of things to him. Meanwhile, I'm sleeping,
Mm.
because I got the day. Meanwhile, I'm sleeping all day. I'm 27 years old.
Mm.
I'm sleeping all day. And Chris does that, gets back on a jet, comes there for the other day. So like we had a day off that day. He worked. He showed up the next day that we were filming. Like nothing happened. I'm like,
Mm.
he didn't go home. He didn't. He probably didn't sleep. And then meanwhile, and then the same time, he's going to Australia to do Fozzy. That guy is nuts, man. That guy is nuts, and he's a great example, and he's a great guy to be around and watch that because it gave me a lot of motivation, and it gave me a lot of. I learned a lot, for me to try to go that route and take those steps of just not being lazy and going to work.
Mm. I got you, man. I got you. So, well, Mo, kind of looking ahead, man. I mean, obviously, you said you had the WWE tryout, man, but kind of looking over the course of the next, say, 4 or 5 years, as far as your career goes. I mean, do you have some goals kind of set for yourself that you like to reach, kind of sort of short term and long term?
You know, obviously with the WWE thing, they essentially told me that they'll, reach out and get to me to give them some time, and essentially the time being, I think they're like sometime in the summer or whatnot. So I'm kind of waiting on that, um, and hoping that goes well for me. Obviously, the WWE is a dream. That's what got me into wrestling. That's what I grew up watching, and those are the guys that I admire in there. So if that's what I'm looking at, hopefully that works out for me, and that's a great dream. But wrestling is doing so great today.
Mm.
WWE is just a dream for me, and because of, like I said, I grew up on it, and I have a lot of memories about it. And I grew up with all my friends. We watched that. So but that's not it. There's AEW. TNA is doing amazing today. Japan. There's so much work in the wrestling world that is, it's today more than ever. It's the best time to be a wrestler. So I think I would love to get a job anywhere. I work very very hard on my craft to try to get a job, and I'm not obviously picky on anything. And it would be a great opportunity for me to get a job somewhere like A&W, where Tom's working there, and get a job there and work some tremendous talent and develop myself there and make a living anywhere. TNA, it's a Canadian product. I would love to work there too. Essentially, I think my next couple of years is looking good for me. I've always had, uh, actually, me and Chris spoke about this too. I've always had a better year than the year before, and that's
Mm.
been my goal every year, right? So whatever I did last year, I'm gonna have a way better year this year, and that's progress for me, right? I'm happy as long as I do that. Obviously you can't predict the future. You can't be like, in 3 years I'm gonna be there. People say that, and you hope for the best, but my goal and my things that I work towards is now, you know. So every day or every year or every month, every week, I try to have a better week, a better year, better whatever, whether it's go to new places, get new opportunities. For example, this year, like just the year just started, but I have some great opportunities. Whether it's the Jericho cruise is my first time. That's a great opportunity to get
Mm.
seen by a whole crew of people that I've never seen me maybe. And then immediately after that, I'm going to Japan, a whole world that I've never been at. So that's immediate. Like those are great, steps for me. And then within that same month, I'm going to Qatar to wrestle in the Middle East. So it's already this year has been better than the year before.
Mm.
Right? So to me, that's a good sign, and I continue to do that and see where that goes. But that's my goal. But in the next couple of years, I would love to be signed somewhere and have a job somewhere and do this full time.